Visceral fat is not just an issue of appearance, it's a warning sign of serious hormonal dysfunction. Unlike subcutaneous fat, which lies just beneath the skin, visceral fat surrounds your internal organs. It's metabolically active, meaning it acts almost like an endocrine organ, releasing inflammatory compounds and hormones that disrupt your metabolism. The most important hormone involved in visceral fat accumulation is insulin. Insulin's main job is to regulate blood sugar by pushing glucose into cells for energy or storage. But when insulin is constantly elevated due to a diet high in sugars, refined carbohydrates, and frequent eating, the body shifts into fat storage mode, particularly around the abdominal organs. Many people are taught to believe that weight gain is simply about eating too many calories and not burning enough through exercise. While there's some truth to energy balance, this outdated model doesn't address the hormonal aspect, especially insulin resistance. When you have insulin resistance, your cells become less responsive to insulin, causing the pancreas to produce even more of it to compensate. This creates a vicious cycle. High insulin leads to more fat storage, which worsens insulin resistance, which raises insulin even further. Over time, this cycle promotes the accumulation of visceral fat. Traditional dieting, which focuses on calorie restriction and low-fat foods, often fails to reverse this cycle. That's because many low-fat or diet foods are loaded with hidden sugars or refined carbs, which still spike insulin. You can actually follow a low-calorie diet and still gain visceral fat if your insulin remains high. The same is true for people who eat 6 small meals a day. Even if they're eating small portions, the frequent insulin spikes prevent fat burning. Insulin is like a switch. When it's on, fat burning is off. When insulin levels fall, the body finally taps into its fat stores, including visceral fat, for energy. Addressing visceral fat requires a strategic approach that targets insulin. One of the most effective strategies is intermittent fasting. By going for extended periods without food, insulin levels drop, and the body starts using stored fat, including visceral fat, as fuel. You're not just eating less, you're eating less often, which is more impactful hormonally. Reducing your eating window to 6 or 8 hours per day allows insulin to drop significantly during the fasting period, giving your body a chance to access and burn stored fat. In addition to intermittent fasting, adopting a ketogenic or low-carb diet is another powerful tool. Carbohydrates are the macronutrient that most significantly raises insulin. When you lower carb intake and increase healthy fats, your insulin levels remain more stable, and you enter a state called ketosis. In ketosis, your body shifts from using glucose to using fat, both dietary fat and stored fat, for energy. This metabolic state is highly effective at shrinking visceral fat, especially when combined with fasting. Another overlooked factor is liver health. Visceral fat and liver fat go hand in hand. When the liver becomes fatty, often due to high fructose intake or insulin resistance, it becomes less efficient at processing nutrients and regulating metabolism. Supporting liver function with choline-rich foods like eggs and organ meats, as well as cruciferous vegetables like kale and broccoli, helps the liver break down and export fat more efficiently. Stress also plays a role. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, another fat-storing hormone that works synergistically with insulin to deposit fat around the midsection. This is why some people gain belly fat even when they don't overeat. Sleep deprivation has a similar effect. Just one night of poor sleep can spike cortisol and insulin the next day, increasing cravings for high-carb foods. Managing stress through practices like deep breathing, walking in nature, or short periods of high-intensity exercise can help bring down cortisol and support a fat-burning hormonal environment. Ultimately, reducing visceral fat is not about working out more or starving yourself. It's about correcting the underlying hormonal imbalance, primarily high insulin. Once you understand how insulin controls fat storage and fat burning, you can begin to work with your body instead of against it. Lower insulin, and visceral fat becomes fuel, not baggage. Intermittent fasting is one of the most powerful strategies to reduce visceral fat because it targets the root cause, elevated insulin. When you eat, especially foods high in carbohydrates, your body releases insulin to help shuttle glucose into your cells. However, if you're eating frequently, 3 meals a day plus snacks, you're constantly spiking insulin, never giving your body a chance to tap into stored fat. This includes the dangerous fat stored deep in the abdominal cavity, also known as visceral fat. Intermittent fasting works by spacing out meals and extending the time your insulin remains low, which allows the body to shift into a fat-burning state. When insulin is low, fat burning is turned on. When insulin is high, fat burning is turned off. Fasting isn't just about skipping meals randomly. It's a strategic tool that creates a metabolic shift. For example, when you fast for 16 hours and eat during an 8-hour window, commonly referred to as 16-8 fasting, you create a large enough insulin break that your body starts accessing stored fat for energy. If you've been eating frequently for years, your body has adapted to using glucose as the primary fuel source, and your fat stores, especially visceral fat, remain untouched. Fasting trains your body to become metabolically flexible, which means it can easily switch between using glucose and fat. Over time, this adaptation makes it easier to burn visceral fat consistently. There's also a deeper hormonal benefit to intermittent fasting that goes beyond insulin. Fasting increases human growth hormone (HGH), which helps preserve lean muscle mass and promotes fat loss. It also improves insulin sensitivity, so over time your body requires less insulin to handle the same amount of glucose. That's key because insulin resistance is a major driver of visceral fat. When you improve insulin sensitivity, you reduce the hormonal signal that tells your body to store fat around the organs. This makes fasting a hormonal reset, not just a dietary trick. Another powerful effect of intermittent fasting is autophagy, a cellular cleanup process that gets activated during periods without food. Autophagy helps your body break down damaged cells and use their components for energy. It's like recycling internal debris, including damaged fat cells and dysfunctional mitochondria. Since visceral fat is inflammatory and contributes to oxidative stress, triggering autophagy through fasting helps reduce inflammation, which further supports fat loss and metabolic repair. People often worry that skipping meals will slow down their metabolism, but research shows that short-term fasting actually preserves or even boosts metabolic rate. The body becomes more efficient and hunger-regulating hormones like ghrelin and leptin become better balanced. This leads to fewer cravings, more energy, and improved appetite control. Fasting also lowers blood sugar and triglyceride levels, which are often elevated in people with excess visceral fat. A good starting point is to fast for 16 hours and eat within an 8-hour window, gradually tightening it to 18-6 or even Omeidy's 1 meal a day if your body adapts well. But it's not just about when you eat. What you eat during your eating window still matters. Pairing intermittent fasting with a low-carb, high-fat ketogenic diet creates a synergistic effect. You avoid insulin spikes from carbs, keep insulin low during fasting periods, and fuel your body with fat, which encourages it to burn stored fat, including visceral fat, for energy. Fasting also affects the gut microbiome, which plays a critical role in metabolism and inflammation. When you're constantly eating, your gut is always digesting. When you fast, your gut gets a break, inflammation drops, and beneficial bacteria increase. A healthy gut environment improves insulin sensitivity and helps regulate weight. This indirect effect contributes even more to reducing visceral fat. Another key part of fasting is avoiding beverages that spike insulin. While water, black coffee, and herbal teas are fine during the fasting window, sugary drinks, fruit juices, or even some flavored waters can raise insulin and disrupt the fast. Keeping insulin low for an extended period is the whole goal. That's what unlocks fat burning at the visceral level. For people who are new to fasting, the initial hunger and discomfort can be challenging, but these symptoms typically subside after a few days. What follows is often increased mental clarity, reduced bloating, better sleep, and more stable energy. As insulin resistance improves and blood sugar stabilizes, the body no longer demands constant feeding, and visceral fat begins to shrink. Intermittent fasting is not just about eating less food, it's about eating at the right times to work with your hormones rather than against them. It's a lifestyle change that supports metabolic healing rather than a temporary weight loss trick. The liver is a central organ in fat metabolism, and its condition directly influences the amount of visceral fat a person carries. When the liver becomes fatty, known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, non-AFDF, its ability to process fat is impaired. This dysfunction causes fat to accumulate not just in the liver itself, but also around the organs in the abdominal cavity. Visceral fat is closely tied to liver health because the liver regulates insulin, cholesterol, and fat distribution. When the liver is overloaded, especially with sugar and refined carbohydrates, it converts that excess into triglycerides, which are stored as fat in the liver and nearby tissues. Fixing the liver is essential for reducing visceral fat, and this can't be done by simply cutting calories or exercising more. It requires strategic nutritional and lifestyle changes that support liver function and improve insulin sensitivity. One major cause of liver fat is fructose. Unlike glucose, which is metabolized by all cells, fructose is almost exclusively processed by the liver. High fructose corn syrup, fruit juices, and even excessive amounts of fruit can overload the liver with fructose, leading to fat buildup. This process is called de novo lipogenesis, where the liver converts sugar into fat. Over time, this fat accumulates in and around the liver, contributing to visceral fat. Reducing or eliminating sources of fructose is one of the most important steps in healing the liver and reducing abdominal fat. This includes avoiding sweetened beverages, energy drinks, and even healthy fruit smoothies that may contain more sugar than a soda. In addition to cutting sugar, supporting the liver with the right nutrients is crucial. Choline is a key nutrient that helps the liver export fat. Without enough choline, fat becomes trapped in the liver. Foods rich in choline include eggs, especially the yolks, beef liver, and salmon. Choline works by helping create phospholipids that package and transport fat out of the liver through bile. Increasing dietary choline can significantly improve liver function and reduce fat storage. Another critical group of foods for liver health are cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. These vegetables contain sulfur compounds that support detoxification pathways in the liver, allowing it to break down and eliminate toxins more effectively. Apple cider vinegar is another simple but powerful tool to support liver function. Just 1 tablespoon diluted in water before meals can help regulate blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, and assist the liver in breaking down fat. Lemon water also has a mild liver supportive effect by stimulating bile production and aiding digestion. These small daily habits, when combined with a low-carb, whole food diet, can gradually reduce liver fat and consequently reduce visceral fat. Another factor in liver health is the gallbladder. The liver produces bile, and the gallbladder stores and concentrates it. Bile is essential for breaking down fats and fat-soluble vitamins. If the gallbladder is sluggish or removed, fat digestion is impaired and undigested fat can back up into the liver, contributing to fatty liver. Supporting bile production with ox bile supplements or bile salts, especially after gallbladder removal, can enhance fat metabolism and ease the liver's burden. Additionally, digestive enzymes and bitters, like dandelion root or artichoke extract, can promote bile flow and support overall liver function. Intermittent fasting also plays a role in liver repair. During the fasting state, insulin drops and the liver begins to break down stored fat for energy. This process helps reduce the fat content within the liver and abdominal region. Fasting also triggers autophagy, a cellular cleanup process that helps remove damaged organelles and fatty deposits in liver cells. Over time, this metabolic reset allows the liver to function more efficiently and burn more fat. Physical movement, while often associated with calorie burning, also stimulates liver health. Gentle walking, especially after meals, helps regulate blood sugar and supports the liver's ability to process nutrients. Resistance training, while beneficial for insulin sensitivity, also indirectly supports the liver by reducing overall body fat and increasing metabolic activity. A sedentary lifestyle slows liver circulation and reduces the organ's efficiency. Liver stress doesn't just come from diet, it also comes from toxins. Alcohol is an obvious liver toxin, but so are many medications, synthetic fragrances, plastics, and pesticides. Reducing exposure to these chemicals supports the liver's detoxification processes. Drinking filtered water, avoiding plastic containers, and choosing organic produce when possible are small but effective steps to minimize the toxic load. Improving sleep is another underrated tool for liver repair. The liver performs much of its detoxification during sleep, especially between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Poor sleep or disrupted circadian rhythms impair this process, allowing fat and toxins to accumulate. Going to bed earlier, reducing screen time before sleep, and ensuring a dark sleeping environment all support deeper sleep and better liver function. Cutting hidden sugars and refined carbohydrates is one of the most critical steps to reducing visceral fat because these foods directly stimulate insulin, the fat storage hormone. Many people associate sugar with only sweet treats like candy and desserts, but the real danger lies in the hidden sugars found in processed foods, sauces, drinks, and even so-called health foods. Foods labeled low-fat, gluten-free, or whole grain often contain added sugars or high glycemic carbohydrates that break down quickly into glucose. These glucose spikes lead to sharp increases in insulin, which signals the body to store fat, especially around the liver and organs, resulting in more visceral fat. The modern diet is overloaded with refined carbs like white bread, pasta, crackers, breakfast cereals, and snack bars that have little to no nutritional value but cause massive hormonal disruption. Refined carbohydrates are stripped of fiber, vitamins, and minerals, making them rapidly digestible and easy to overconsume. Once ingested, they cause a rapid rise in blood sugar, followed by a surge in insulin to bring that sugar into the cells. When this happens repeatedly, the body starts storing excess glucose as fat in the liver and abdomen. Over time, the cells become less responsive to insulin, a condition known as insulin resistance. The pancreas compensates by releasing even more insulin, which drives more fat storage. This is how a diet high in refined carbs can lead directly to insulin resistance and visceral fat accumulation, even in people who are not overeating in terms of total calories. Another problem with sugar and refined carbs is how they influence appetite. These foods tend to be hyper-palatable, meaning they're engineered to taste good and override your natural satiety signals. After eating them, blood sugar rises quickly, then drops just as fast, leading to hunger, cravings, and the desire to snack again, often on the same types of foods. This keeps insulin levels elevated throughout the day, preventing the body from accessing fat stores for energy. Many people find themselves trapped in this cycle, craving carbs, eating them, feeling a temporary energy boost, and then crashing only to repeat the process. The result is a persistent inability to lose weight, especially around the midsection. One of the most deceptive sources of hidden sugar is beverages. Fruit juices, flavored waters, energy drinks, and even seemingly healthy smoothies often contain more sugar than soda. These drinks don't trigger the same fullness signals as solid food, so people consume large amounts without realizing the impact on their blood sugar and insulin. Even fruit, while natural, contains fructose, which is processed only by the liver. Excess fructose can directly lead to fatty liver and increase visceral fat. For people dealing with weight gain, fatty liver, or insulin resistance, reducing fruit and eliminating fruit juices is often necessary until metabolic health is restored. Many packaged foods also use different names for sugar on the ingredients list, making it harder for consumers to recognize. Words like dextrose, maltodextrin, corn syrup, cane juice, and agave, nectar all act the same way in the body. They raise blood glucose and trigger insulin. Even foods that don't taste sweet, like savory sauces, ketchup, salad dressings, and bread, often contain added sugars. Reading ingredient labels carefully is essential. Avoiding sugar means avoiding all of its aliases, not just white table sugar. Swapping refined carbs and sugars for nutrient-dense, low glycemic foods can quickly reverse this process. Non-starchy vegetables, healthy fats like olive oil and avocado, moderate protein, and whole foods that don't spike insulin can help stabilize blood sugar and allow the body to begin burning fat for energy. When insulin is kept low, especially in combination with intermittent fasting, fat burning turns on. The body will start to tap into its visceral fat stores, especially around the liver and organs, as an energy source. This is a key part of reversing metabolic syndrome and improving overall health. Cravings for sugar and carbs often fade after just a few days of eliminating them, especially when the body is nourished with whole foods and electrolytes. Sugar withdrawal symptoms, like fatigue, irritability, or headaches, are usually temporary and can be minimized with adequate hydration, sea salt, and potassium-rich foods like spinach or avocado. As blood sugar stabilizes, energy becomes more consistent, mental clarity improves, and the constant hunger cycle breaks. This not only makes it easier to maintain a healthy weight, but also restores hormonal balance and dramatically reduces the risk of developing type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Reducing hidden sugars and refined carbs is more than just a diet tip, it's a foundational metabolic correction. Cortisol is a hormone produced by the adrenal glands, primarily in response to stress. While it plays a crucial role in survival, helping the body respond to threats, regulate blood pressure, and manage energy, it becomes problematic when elevated chronically. High cortisol over time leads to a cascade of metabolic imbalances, one of the most significant being the accumulation of visceral fat. This isn't random. Cortisol has a direct impact on fat storage, especially in the abdominal region. When stress becomes chronic, the body prioritizes storing fat around vital organs as a protective mechanism. From an evolutionary standpoint, this made sense for surviving periods of famine or danger, but in the modern world, where stress is constant and food is abundant, it leads to serious health issues. When cortisol is elevated, it raises blood sugar by signaling the liver to produce more glucose. This is meant to provide quick energy in a fight or flight situation. However, if you're not physically responding to that stress with intense activity like running or lifting heavy objects, then that extra glucose has nowhere to go. As a result, insulin is released to bring the blood sugar down, and any unused glucose gets stored as fat, primarily around the abdomen. This repeated process contributes to both insulin resistance and visceral fat accumulation. The combination of high cortisol and high insulin is a perfect storm for weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. Cortisol also promotes muscle breakdown to free up amino acids that can be converted into glucose, which further slows metabolism. The less muscle mass a person has, the fewer calories they burn at rest. This leads to a downward spiral where fat increases, muscle decreases, and metabolic rate slows. Visceral fat itself produces inflammatory chemicals, which further stress the body and increase cortisol, creating a vicious cycle that's hard to break unless the root cause, chronic stress, is addressed. Modern life is filled with stressors that keep cortisol levels elevated: work deadlines, financial concerns, lack of sleep, blue light exposure, social media stimulation, processed foods, overtraining, and even emotional toxicity in relationships. Many people are in a near constant state of fight or flight, even if they're sitting at a desk. Unlike acute stress, which is short-lived and followed by a recovery period, chronic stress becomes biologically embedded. This constant state of alert signals the body to store energy, conserve fat, and suppress fat-burning hormones like growth hormone and testosterone. Sleep deprivation is one of the most common but overlooked stressors that raise cortisol. Even one night of poor sleep can elevate cortisol the next day, increase appetite, especially for sugar and carbs, and reduce insulin sensitivity. Over time, sleep debt leads to increased belly fat and worsened hormonal balance. Deep, consistent sleep is one of the fastest ways to bring cortisol down naturally. Going to bed before 10 p.m., keeping the room dark and cool, and avoiding screens at night all support the body's natural circadian rhythm and allow cortisol to lower in the evening, which is when fat-burning hormones are supposed to rise. Adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, rhodiola, and holy basil can help regulate cortisol levels. These herbs don't block cortisol, but help the body adapt to stress more efficiently, improving resilience and reducing the harmful impact of stress on fat storage. Ashwagandha in particular has been shown in clinical studies to reduce cortisol and improve sleep quality, energy levels, and mood. Breathing exercises, meditation, grounding us, walking barefoot on natural surfaces, and even regular time spent in nature have also been shown to reduce cortisol levels. When you shift into a parasympathetic or rest and digest state, your body releases fewer stress hormones and more recovery hormones, allowing fat burning to resume. Even just 10 minutes a day of deep breathing or quiet reflection can begin to change the hormonal environment in your body. Exercise also plays a dual role in cortisol management. While high-intensity training or chronic cardio can raise cortisol temporarily, moderate-intensity resistance training and walking actually help lower cortisol in the long run. Gentle movement, like yoga, tai chi, or slow-paced strength training helps support hormonal balance without overstimulating the adrenals. Walking after meals is particularly effective, as it improves insulin sensitivity and supports cortisol regulation. Diet influences cortisol as well. High-carb meals, caffeine, and alcohol can spike cortisol, especially when consumed in excess or at the wrong times. Eating a balanced meal with protein, healthy fat, and fiber helps stabilize blood sugar and reduce the roller coaster effect that triggers cortisol spikes. Hydration is also important. Dehydration acts as a physical stressor, raising cortisol. Drinking enough water, replenishing electrolytes, and avoiding stimulants late in the day all contribute to a more balanced stress response and better fat metabolism. Muscle tissue is one of the most metabolically active components of the human body, and its relationship to fat loss, especially visceral fat, is often underestimated. Most people focus on losing weight by cutting calories or doing long sessions of cardio, but few understand how important muscle is in reversing the underlying hormonal imbalances that cause fat accumulation. Muscle isn't just for strength or appearance. It acts like a metabolic engine that burns calories even when you're at rest. The more lean muscle mass you have, the more efficiently your body uses glucose, the better your insulin sensitivity becomes, and the easier it is to burn fat, particularly in the abdominal cavity where visceral fat builds up. Muscle acts as an insulin sink, absorbing glucose from the bloodstream and reducing the insulin spikes that promote fat storage. Insulin resistance is one of the primary drivers of visceral fat, and building muscle directly counteracts this condition. When your muscle cells are healthy and active, they respond well to insulin and can absorb glucose without needing excessive insulin. This reduces the amount of circulating insulin in your body, which is crucial because insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone, it's a fat storage hormone. Lowering insulin makes it possible for the body to enter a fat-burning state. Since visceral fat is particularly sensitive to hormonal signals, improving muscle mass naturally shifts your metabolism toward fat loss rather than fat storage. Muscle also plays a major role in regulating other hormones. Strength training and resistance-based exercises stimulate the release of human growth hormone HGH and testosterone, both of which support fat loss and help maintain lean body tissue. These hormones are particularly important for maintaining a healthy body composition as you age. After around age 30, most people begin to lose muscle mass at a rate of about 3–8% per decade. Without active resistance training to counteract this, the natural loss of muscle contributes to a slower metabolism, reduced glucose tolerance, and greater fat accumulation, especially around the midsection. This age-related muscle loss is called sarcopenia, and it's one of the hidden reasons many people struggle to lose weight despite dieting. Resistance training doesn't have to be extreme to be effective. Simple, consistent workouts using body weight, resistance bands, dumbbells, or machines can significantly improve muscle tone and metabolic health. Focused movements like squats, lunges, push-ups, rows, and deadlifts activate large muscle groups and stimulate hormonal responses that support fat loss. Just 2 to 3 sessions per week of full body resistance training can lead to significant changes in body composition over time. In addition, muscle repair and recovery after training require energy, which means you continue burning calories even after your workout is over. There is also a strong connection between muscle health and mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the energy factories inside your cells, and they're found in abundance in muscle tissue. As you build and use your muscles, mitochondrial density and efficiency increase, improving your ability to oxidize fat for fuel. This is especially important when it comes to targeting stubborn visceral fat, which is more resistant to being burned through ordinary activity. A well-functioning mitochondria network in muscle cells enhances overall metabolic flexibility, allowing your body to more easily switch between using glucose and fat for energy depending on availability. Muscle also helps reduce inflammation, which is a key contributor to visceral fat accumulation. Visceral fat produces pro-inflammatory cytokines that worsen insulin resistance and promote further fat storage. In contrast, contracting muscles release anti-inflammatory compounds called myokines that help counteract systemic inflammation. This is one reason why physically active individuals generally have lower levels of inflammatory markers and a healthier body composition. Myokines also improve communication between muscle and other organs, including the liver and brain, supporting better overall metabolic control. Diet plays an important role in supporting muscle health and development. Adequate protein intake is essential to build and maintain muscle mass. Aim for high-quality sources like eggs, fish, poultry, beef, and plant-based proteins such as lentils or hemp seeds, depending on dietary preference. Inadequate protein not only hinders muscle growth, but also impairs recovery, making it harder to sustain training and maintain lean mass. Protein also has a high thermic effect, meaning it requires more energy to digest compared to fats or carbohydrates, contributing to an overall increase in calorie burn. Even daily movement that engages muscles, such as walking, standing more often, climbing stairs, or doing physical chores, helps prevent the muscle loss and metabolic slowdown that promote visceral fat. While structured exercise is important, the total daily muscular activity plays a big role in shaping long-term fat distribution and metabolic efficiency. Combining resistance training with a low-carb diet, adequate sleep, stress management, and intermittent fasting creates a powerful synergy for reversing insulin resistance, burning visceral fat, and rebuilding a healthy, strong fat-burning body.